Hello everyone, welcome to one more chapter. Because most aspirants don't read PIB regularly, they don't know which PIB news is actually important and they often struggle to connect current affairs with static subjects. So here I'll be covering what can UPSC ask from this particular PIB article, which also includes the static connection, previous year question, expected prelims MCQ and expected mains question. So let's analyze today's PIB article. So today the first press release of the PIB website is from Prime Minister office, which says Prime Minister shares a Sanskrit Subhashitam highlighting agriculture and crops as the foundation of human life. So along with this, he also shares a tweet which includes a quote and which also mentioned hashtag 12 years of Kisan Samriddhi. So the quote here means one who understands the truth of agriculture sustains society. So let's analyze this article from history point of view. So UPSC might give you a particular quote or any term and ask which ancient text it's belong to. So the ancient text which talks about agriculture are Satapatha Brahmana, Rig Ved, which mentions the Langala or plow, which in modern times which is plowshare, and Krishi Parashara. So it's a text which is entirely dedicated towards the agriculture. So you should be knowing these terms. UPSC might ask you about a term in ancient times which was denoted to agriculture. For example, Sita. In modern empire, it meant state-owned agriculture, which was the main source of income in modern empire. Another thing, in modern times, it meant the state-owned agriculture. But in Rigvedic, if we see in terms of Rigvedic agricultural terms, here the term Sita means the track created in the fields by plowshare. But in modern times, it means the state-owned land. So we should be careful about these things. So here I have added some Rigvedic agricultural terms, which you can pause and take the screenshot. Let's move further. Let's analyze that particular article from agriculture economy point of view. So you must be knowing there are various government schemes related to agriculture which government launches time to time. The famous one is PM Kisan, you must be knowing. So you should be knowing the implementation criteria and funding mechanism of PM Kisan, and it's a 100% central sector scheme. And as the Prime Minister mentioned in his tweet, PM Kisan Samriddhi Kendras, hashtag 12 years of PM Kisan Samriddhi. So basically what it does, it converts fertilizer retail shops into one-stop shops for farmers providing seeds, testing and extension services. Also, the tweet is slightly tilted towards the philosophical context as he also shared a ancient quote. So there was a scheme called Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana which was launched in 2014 or 2015 I guess. So it basically integrates traditional knowledge with modern organic farming which aims to reduce chemical dependence and improve soil health. So you should be knowing this particular scheme because that article basically denotes a Sanskrit term and this scheme is slightly about the traditional knowledge and a modern organic farming. Let's move further. So let's analyze that article from geography and agronomy point of view. You must be knowing the cropping seasons and conditions, knowledge of Kharif, Rabi and Zaid crops. And as the Sanskrit quote he tweeted in his X account, it was about sustainable agriculture. That quote basically means sustainable agriculture. So you must be knowing the natural farming, conservation agriculture or agroforestry. So let's move towards the prelims question which UPSC might ask according to cultural and ancient history focus. With reference to ancient Indian history, the term Sasya, which we read earlier in the previous slides, frequently mentioned in Vedic and post-Vedic literature, primarily refers to a type of land tax levied on pastoral communities, crops or agricultural produce essential for sustenance, the guild of merchant dealing with international trade, and a sacrificial ritual performed for timely rains. So the here correct answer is crop or agricultural produce essential for sustenance. Because the term Sasya, as we read earlier, it means the let me check it. So the term Sasya here means crops or harvest in ancient economic context. So in ancient economic text, the term Sasya refers to crops or harvest. Also the term Krishi, the evolution of the term Krishi is from the ancient Vedic times. So you should remember these terms. Let's move towards the question. So here the correct answer is crops or agricultural produce essential for sustenance. Let's move towards the next question. Consider the following statement regarding the PM Kisan Samriddhi Kendras which he mentioned in his tweet. First option is they act as one-stop shops catering the diverse needs of farmers including soil testing facilities. They are managed entirely by NABARD to eliminate middleman intervention in credit blockage. So here the correct answer is option 1 only. Because you must be knowing, we have read here that PM Kisan Samriddhi Kendras is basically converts fertilizer retail shop into one-stop shops. And this is the exact question. And why the second option is incorrect? Because it is not entirely managed by, extreme options are always tend to be incorrect. They are not entirely managed by NABARD. They are managed by Ministry of Agriculture and Fertilizers also. So let's move towards the next article. So the next article is from Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, that says Scientific Conclave on Indian Pharmacopoeia 2026 held in Haridwar highlights role of pharmacopoeial standard in strengthening pharmaceutical quality. So the keywords for your notes from this article could be, what is Indian Pharmacopoeia? So it is the official book of standard for drugs in India. And if a drug is included in IP, it must adhere strictly to those standards. Next is CDSCO, which is Central Drug Standard Control Organization, versus IPC, which is Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. So understand that CDSCO, that is Central Drug Standard Control Organization, under the National Regulatory Authority, is the overarching enforcement and approval body, while the IPC is the dedicated scientific body that sets the standards, that is monograph. So CDSCO is the enforcement and approval body. This is enforcement and approval body, and IPC is a scientific body. So remember these terms. Next is pharma hubs. As we know that Uttarakhand and Himachal, alongside states like Himachal Pradesh and Gujarat, is a major manufacturing hub for pharma. So this geography link is useful for writing localized examples in mains answers. Next, move ahead. So there are some prelims questions which UPSC might ask regarding this topic. Let's read it out. So the first one is regarding the institutional and regulatory framework. That says, with reference to the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, consider the following statements. First, it is a statutory body established under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. Second, it functions as an autonomous institution under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Third, its primary mandate is to officially publish the Indian Pharmacopoeia for setting standard of drugs in India. So the first option is incorrect, because the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission is an autonomous institution, not a statutory body, and it was established as an autonomous society registered under the Societies Registration Act 1860. Let's move towards next option. It functions as an autonomous institution under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So this option is absolutely correct, because it functions as an autonomous institution body under the administrative control of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Third, its primary mandate is to officially publish the Indian Pharmacopoeia for setting standards of drugs in India. This statement is also correct, because its primary mandate is to officially publish the Indian Pharmacopoeia periodically. Because the IP is an official book of standard, as we read earlier. IP, Indian Pharmacopoeia, is an official book of standards that outlines procedures and specifications to determine the identity, purity, and strength of drugs manufactured and marketed in India. So option 2 and 3 here are the correct. And the next question is about drug regulation architecture. That says, which of the following organization authority in India is responsible for granting manufacturing licenses for drugs and ensuring state level compliance, as highlighted in recent pharmaceutical conclaves? Option A, Central Drug Standard Control Organization. Option B, National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority. C, State Licensing Authorities or State Drug Controllers. D, Indian Council of Medical Research. So the correct option is option C, State Licensing Authorities. Because under the Indian Drugs and Cosmetic Act, state level compliance and granting of manufacturing licenses for standard drugs are primarily under the jurisdiction of respective state drug control departments, while the Central Drug Standard Control Organization acts as an apex national body responsible for approving new drugs and overseeing clinical trials. So the correct answer is option C. So the next question is about scientific and technical terms. That says, the term Indian Pharmacopoeia reference substances, often seen in the news, is best described as highly purified compounds used as benchmarks to test the quality, purity, and strength of manufactured medicines, a list of banned traditional medicines compiled by the Ministry of Ayush, experimental chemical formulations under trial for rare tropical disease, patent protected active pharmaceutical ingredients imported from global hubs. So the correct answer is option A. Because Indian Pharmacopoeia reference substance are highly characterized official physical specimen issued by the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. They act as a primary reference standards to help ensure the identity, strength of manufactured medicines. So these certified benchmarks are utilized in laboratory testing such as chromatographic analysis or spectrophotometry to verify whether manufactured medicines meet the strict safety and quality standards required by law. This is how you should relate your PIB with your static portion. And reading the PIB can be overwhelming because the government releases dozens of press releases daily. However, for a UPSC aspirant, PIB is an absolute goldmine, not for the raw news itself, but because of the bridge between current affairs and your static portion. UPSC trends consistently show that lengthier, factual, and deeply analytical questions are pulled straight from the government data platforms. So to read PIB effectively, you must learn to trigger a reverse static search. It is working backwards through time, right? To find its sources or forwards to find the new data and facts that cite it. Now, how to do the reverse static search? For example, if PIB shows the zonal council meets the zonal council meets Amit Shah. So how to link this with static portion? Do not just read what happened in the meeting. Go back to your polity textbook Lakshmikant and see, is it zonal council a constitutional or statutory body, and who is the chairman and who are the members. Now, UPSC will pick the zonal council from the news but frame the prelim statements entirely based on its static features to test if you know its constitutional origin or not. So as I've said earlier, that PIB releases dozens of press releases daily. So how to know which of them are important and which are not? So to avoid wasting hours, categorize your daily PIB feed into 3 colors. First, green, which it should be your high priority area, which includes schemes, acts, science innovations, treaties, etc. Second, the moderate areas are equally as the green area, which includes the CPI, WPI, or MOUs. So note only the trend or organization involved in these. And the last one is the red areas, which you should ignore completely. It includes the local launch events, sports awards, speeches of ministers, routine political statements. So you should ignore these areas completely. Never read PIB in isolation. Keep your syllabus copy and your static notes open right next to you. The moment you read a term on PIB that you recognize from your static textbook, pause, open that textbook page and read them together. That is exactly how the UPSC paper setter designs the examination.